وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Inshallah everybody's Eid was well. Hopefully it was good, happy, joyful, joyous. Bidnillahi ta'ala. Accept your Ramadan, Ameen. And as a very brief reminder, with some of the early Muslims, some of the pious predecessors, what they would do with regards to before and after Ramadan. Some scholars say is that many of them would spend 6 months out of the year asking for Allah to allow them to see it. They would make dua for half the year to get to Ramadan. And once they got to Ramadan, they fasted, they performed their worship, their rituals, their rites. They would spend another 6 months asking Allah to accept it from them. So just think about that pre and post game. Studying the film, practicing, training. You have the fight or the game, and then you're reviewing and refining your technique and trying to get better for the next performance. So that's just definitely food for thought. Asking Allah to allow them to see it, and then asking Allah to accept it. Performing the worship is a wonderful thing, but it's no guarantee that it's going to be accepted. Rather, it's no guarantee that their worship is done correctly if you don't have the knowledge. If I don't have the basic knowledge, not the exotic stuff, the fancy stuff, the basic, solid fundamentals, okay, not the exotic knowledge. The exotic knowledge is not mandatory for every Muslim. And to push that upon the people is a capital mistake that we suffer from in this city and other parts of the world as well. Trying to force the layman Muslim to learn things and to busy him or herself with things that Allah and His Messenger has not made mandatory. It's a capital mistake and an ingredient for chaos. But we're talking about solid, fundamental rudiments of the deen, that no Muslim is excused. No Muslim has an excuse for not knowing. I'm not a scholar. I'm not a student of knowledge. I've never been to Medina. I never went overseas. I don't speak Arabic. No excuse. And I can tell you, first and foremost, by the nature of many questions that we get from different brothers and sisters from around the world, is that there are many fundamental rudiments Muslims are ignorant of, okay, and unaware of, and have a nonchalant attitude towards. So just because I fasted, just because I made Hajj, just because I prayed, it doesn't mean I did it correctly. And there are many hadiths in which the Prophet ﷺ directly and indirectly places a strong emphasis on the worship being done correctly. With regards to the Eid Adha, the next coming Eid, inshallah, those who slaughtered in the incorrect time, they didn't slaughter in the proper time. And the Prophet ﷺ says that your sacrifice is just normal meat. It's meat to eat. It's lahmu shat. It's not udhiyah because you didn't do it properly. And the Prophet ﷺ mandating the ages of the animals. A sheep and a goat are different. Goat has to be at least a year into the second year. The sheep, according to many scholars, can be 6 months. The camel has to be 5. Bull has to be at least 2, etc. You can't just slaughter any animal that you want. It has to be done correctly. And the Prophet ﷺ telling the man who prayed badly, he said, go and pray again because you did not pray. And the list goes on and on and on, in which the Messenger of Allah ﷺ placed a strong emphasis on the worship being done correctly. And then on top of that, once you do the worship correctly, according to the Prophet ﷺ's way, the simple basic way, is no guarantee that Allah will accept it from you. There's no guarantee for that. You don't know that, what Allah accepts, who Allah accepts from. We don't know what's in the people's hearts or minds. You don't know. So performing it correctly is step one. And then you hope and you beg and you ask Allah to accept it. There's no guarantee that Allah Azza wa Jalla will accept it from you. All right, so that's definitely food for thought. And Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he said regarding Laylatul Qadr, he said, لو كانت ليلة القدر بالسنة لقمت السنة حتى أدركها فما بالك بعشر ليال. He said that if Laylatul Qadr fluctuated throughout the entire year, if it wasn't just in Ramadan, if it was throughout the entire year, he says, I would have stood in prayer the entire year to make sure that I caught Laylatul Qadr. He said, and what do you think about 10 nights? 10 nights, inshallah, when Laylatul Qadr will be. He says, Laylatul Qadr is that expensive, is that valuable for a person to spend a whole year chasing it. All right, so the concept of performing the ibadah, fasting, praying, zakat al-fitr, the sadaqah, all of the good deeds, feeding the Muslim, man fattara sa'iman, whoever gives a fasting Muslim iftar will receive the reward of those who fasted, etc. It has to be done correctly, and you should spend a great deal of time asking Allah to accept it from you. And always scorn your worship. Never look at yourself to be on a pedestal. Never look at yourself to have made an accomplishment in which you can now just chill and take it easy. But keep moving forward, huh? It's very important. And as I said, that's what? Food for thought. Nothing more with regards to that. All right. So, tonight, bidnillahi ta'ala, we said that we would start our new book. But inshallah, we'll just take questions tonight, inshallah. And hopefully next week, we'll start our class anew, if that's okay with you guys. Inshallah. It's been a while. Last class, we were disturbed. We didn't get a chance to necessarily take the questions. All right, so before we start the questions, we have a brief gift giveaway. One of the believers had asked me and requested me to pick out some of the brothers and the sisters that were consistent in the classes from the beginning and give them a small token or humble gift, token of appreciation for being consistent, coming to the classes consistently, participating in the classes, memorizing hadiths, whether you had perfect attendance or not. So, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, and this is not a means to exclude anybody or to make someone feel special or someone to feel neglected, but obviously the believers vary in their levels without anything personal. Everybody doesn't come to every class for one reason or another. Everyone doesn't have the same level of devotion and dedication. You may be more devoted than I am. You can't take it personal. So we've narrowed it down, inshallah ta'ala, to a few of the brothers who we think and feel, and we could be mistaken, that were the most consistent, okay, the most hardworking, and that started the class from the very beginning, and they were in the trenches from the beginning until now. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So, inshallah, I can open the box. Pass me a bag, please. And of course, the hadith, the famous hadith says, tahadu, tahabu. Give gifts and you'll love each other. Giving a gift is a major means behind loving somebody. So it's a very simple gift, but hopefully it's from the heart. I didn't buy this or purchase this. As I said, it was another disciple. It was their idea. Following tradition. We got some organic peppermint tea. All right, refreshing brew, huh? Caffeine-free peppermint is refreshing and uplifting any time of day. Enjoy the evenings as a soothing way to relax and wind down. Cooling flavor, cool, crisp, and refreshing infusing with a spicy menthol aroma. It is often used as a flavoring in tea, ice cream, and various confectionery. Origin, USA, etc. The peppermint plant. The leaves of peppermint are distinctly stalked and grow about 2 inches or more in length, 3/4 to 1.5 inches broad. The plant's characteristic fragrance comes from the volatile oil present in all its parts. Okay, inshallah, you have a little jar to store your tea, and within the jar you have some tea bags. So you can use loose leaf. You can put it in a bag if you want, depending on your madhab, different schools of thought. In the UK, America, some people look at a bag as an abomination, and some people look at loose leaf tea as an abomination. All right, so you have to make that decision for yourself. All right, you can use loose leaf, you can use the bag, you got the option. And of course, the tea is strong, and a very important aspect of having good tea is to preserve its freshness. And oftentimes, glass is the best thing for that. All right, and Allah knows best. All right, so it's going to be difficult, and we're going to try our best, inshallah. First gift I would give to Sheikh Abdul Basit for his consistency and excellence. Next bag. We don't have to clap, inshallah. That's fine. It's all right. Next bag. We give it to Tariq. And it's not necessarily in order, okay? Jazakallah khairan. Third bag. Ustaz Sulaiman, Fadal. Fourth bag. Well, yeah, enjoy the tea, Sheikh. Uh-oh. Forgot the cards. Some cards as well. We'll do that later, hopefully. Inshallah. طيب. Sensei. تفضل Sheikh. بارك الله فيكم. Fourth bag. Sheikh Anwar. تفضل. Fifth bag. It's a canister missing. A-Rock. تفضل. Next bag. فيكم بارك الله. Sheikh Rodney. Next bag. وياكم. داود. وياكم. Jabbar. You've been drafted. Come on down. How many bags we got left? Two. 2 bags left? I'll keep. For sure. Alhamdulillah. How many bags you got left?
None.
There's 2 bags left, Khalil. Last bag. And like I said, this is not against nobody. I'm only following orders, huh? The brothers that came, those around from the very beginning, that didn't miss so many classes. Tayyip. I don't know, Mujahid. It's not looking, it's just too. Allahu alam, Ak. Khair, inshallah. We already know. Wali. Father. Father Ali Jamil. Bismillah. Wa iyyakum. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. There's a few brothers missing that were here. I think Khalid. Khalid was around pretty much. Fadl, Majid. You get what's in my flask. Fadl, Bismillah. Freshly made. And of course, there are many brothers who come to the classes consistently, like I said. It's not to exclude anybody. You understand? It's not to exclude anybody. It's actually meant as an incentive for the people to be more consistent and more participative. That's it. Huh? Khair, inshallah. All right. So let's get started with the questions. Any questions from the brothers here? Dawood, Fadl. Alayhi salam wa rahmatullah.
If you like miss some days during Ramadan, you gotta make them days up first before you make 6 days of Shawwal.
If you miss days in Ramadan, you have to make them up first before you do the 6 days in Shawwal. The brief answer is there are different views on that. Different views. The safest thing to do is to make them up first. But if you feel cornered, if you feel that you're going to miss out on Shawwal because of traveling or sickness or anything else, something that you know you're going to have to do, you're going to need the strength for, then do the 6 first. Do the 6 first. And this issue is based off of another issue. And that issue is it lawful to make voluntary worship when you have to make up mandatory worship? Is it lawful to do nafila when you have missed fard? Such as prayer. It's time for a sunnah prayer, a nafila prayer that you don't want to lose out on. But you've missed dhuhr, you overslept for dhuhr. Or sadaqah. Can you give sadaqah and you owe somebody money? Right? There are many other issues like this. And the scholars, they have different views on that. So the simplified answer is yes, you can. And the best and the safest thing to do is to make up the Ramadan days. But of course, the situation gets much more difficult when we talk about women. They have days to make up for menstruation. A woman gets pregnant, breastfeeding, traveling, etc. Oftentimes, they'll keep missing out on the Shawwal, right? Okay, and that's the simplified answer. We have full lectures on this topic on the channel. Full discussions on this, on making up the 6 days, etc. Next question. Fadl, Sheikh.
I have, this is
terms of giving the zakat al-fitr. Can you give it to someone who's captive in prison or something like that? In any commissary and things of that nature. So
Ta'ib.
can your zakat al-fitr
It can be given to anyone that's needy, in captivity or free. As long as they fall under the category of needy, it can be given to them. Even if it's in prison, in form of commissary, etc. As long as they fall under the category of needy, those who deserve the right to zakat al-fitr. Wallahu a'lam.
Second part.
Faddal.
Concerning traveling, all right, and the fact that you may be somewhere that's considered unsafe, can you make the salah in your vehicle, or do you have to get out and stand up and make it?
Clear. Traveling and making prayer inside of your vehicle, or do you have to get out and stand up, etc. The default is that you have to stand up. No doubt about that. وَقُومُوا لِلَّهِ قَانِتِينَ. Okay, that's the default. However, extreme rain, extreme cold, or the reasonable fear of danger for your well-being and safety, you're allowed to pray sitting down. Not something which is unreasonable, but I actually feel that, no doubt, and the odds and the chances of that are high. Not just paranoid, not just anything you get struck by lightning, but etc. And of course, other things should be taken into consideration, such as moving to another location, such as combining salah, etc. But the actual question, push come to shove, yes. And you're going to have to make that decision. It has to go back to your discretion. With regards to rain, with regards to cold, with regards to a wild animal. You may be on the side of the road, you may be in a town, whatever you want to call a town, a hick town or whatever, in which you actually feel something could take place. And Allah is the protector. Wallahu alam. Any other questions, brothers? Before we take those online, Fadl akhi.
So last Friday, I was traveling. I came here in Egypt. I was moving to Egypt, but I still had to make money.
Okay.
So I prayed the Jamaat Egypt,
Okay.
and then I went back and prayed Maghrib.
Okay.
Correct.
So, person is traveling, they come to the masjid, the Jamaat is making Isha, he has to make Maghrib, he made Isha, and then made his Maghrib later on. Is that correct? Not necessarily correct. You did part of it correct, which was to enter to the Jama'ah. They're praying, you pray, no matter what. No matter what prayers you've missed or have to make, you enter into the Jama'ah. The importance of the congregation, right? The importance of the congregation. So that's you've done that well. But inshallah, in the next time in the future, you want to enter the Isha Jama'ah with the intention of your Maghrib. You have the niyyah in your heart and mind. This is my Maghrib, it's there. Isha. Now what you do you sit when they're making their fourth rak'ah? Do you salam out? Further discussion. What's important is that you actually enter with the intention of Maghrib. Once you've done the Isha, then you make once you've done the Isha with them, you make your Isha. That's the correct thing to do. And Allah surely knows best. How's the team Mujahid? Sorry? That's a different blend though. Yeah. You got something exclusive. No. Tayyip, Faddal.
Mr. Look forward.
Question is, the fasting, you make intentions to fast, and it's after Salat al-Fajr, and you have relations with your wife, you should not have had relations with your wife because it's fasting time. Do you make up 60 days for that one day?
Understood. Tayyip. If there's no excuse, there's no valid excuse why you have relations with your wife, forgetfulness or whatever, you're fasting, whatever the case may be, you've definitely fallen into a great sin. A sin in which the man described himself in two different versions of the hadith. One says, ihtaraqtu. He says, I'm burnt up. And when the Prophet ﷺ heard this, shortly after, he says, Ayna al-muhtariq. He says, where's the man who's on fire? Where's the man who's burnt? The Prophet never denied him by claiming that he was burnt. And another version of the hadith says, halaktu, I am destroyed. And the Prophet ﷺ gave him the remedy, what to do, but he never negated the fact that he was destroyed. So that's a problem. Whoever falls into that, they have to pay the expiation in order. in order, inshallah. And that is the freeing of a believing slave. If that's not possible, if that's impossible, these times and days, Allah knows best, then of course it's a fasting of 2 consecutive months. And if a person can't do that for health reasons or job or whatever, then to feed 60 poor Muslims. And that's to be done along with repentance. And the safest thing is to make the repentance, pay the expiation, and make up the day. It's the safest thing to do. And Allah surely knows best. Faddal.
This might not be a forum for this, so if it ain't, we can table it. But you normally up on your world history. Could you help shed some light on, genuinely, I really don't, we're just starting to really look at this, but what's happening in Palestine? From your perspective.
Question with regards to what's going on in Palestine. Could you shed some light from your perspective, etc.? To keep things concise as possible, then what's happening in Palestine, I think should make every single Muslim sad. I think it should hurt and break the heart of every Muslim, regardless of the situation, regardless of this, that, what's happening. Bottom line, if you have Iman in your heart, you hear about it, you see it, it should cause you sadness. There's no question about that. For the fact that Masjid al-Aqsa, the Prophet ﷺ gave that masjid a high status in the Quran. All right? There are Muslims there. Those lands are blessed lands from which many prophets and messengers were born and traveled and died and fought. Okay? And great legacy of scholars, warriors, all types of Muslims came from that region, that part of the world. So to see those Muslims there being shamelessly killed and slaughtered, women, children, men, whoever they are, it has to cause you sadness. There's no doubt about that. That's point number one, in brief. Point number two, then of course, there's always been fighting there. Fighting between Muslims and non-Muslims and others as well throughout our history. As far as the conflict with regards to Muslim, Zionist, Muslim, Jew, Arab, Jew, okay, with regards to Ottoman, Arabian, British, etc. in the 20th and 21st century, then that's also very long, unfortunately. It's been going on for a very long time, all right? So in brief, we know what we have in our book. We know what Allah Azza wa Jalla says about the believers and what He says about the disbelievers. Those who will and those who will not believe. Those who cheat, rob, and steal from people who aren't in their religion and their faith. And what they said then and what they say now. And the arrogant, conceited attitude that many of them have to this day. One of the things that I would like to highlight is the hypocrisy of the modern world and of diplomacy and of democracy and UN and human rights and so on and so forth. Okay? The media, the different lies, the different distortions. All right? That's a discussion in itself. And of course is the infighting of the Muslims. The warring of the Muslims. The betrayal of the Muslims to each other. Turning their backs on their Muslim brothers. Aligning themselves with disbelievers, regardless of their level or type of disbelief. It's very sad and it's very unfortunate. And if you read the history, the modern history of Palestine, Israel, Zionists, Arabs, Muslims, Yasser Arafat, etc., you'll find all of that being mentioned. So it's a very unfortunate situation. However, I mean, the facts are the facts. Just read and look at the facts, okay? These people are considered to be terrorists. These people that have a state, they deserve to exist, etc., etc. What you read in the news. But look what's happening. The slaughter. Look at the people that are just being decimated and erased. Okay? Where is the democracy, the human rights? But the last thing I'll say is, unfortunately, is that if they weren't fighting right now, people weren't losing their lives, getting their homes taken from them, demolished, etc., then there are too many other places in the world in which the Muslims' blood is like water. The Muslims being killed and persecuted. Muslims being driven out and having their property and their wealth taken from them. That's the problem. All right? Of course, Jerusalem, Palestine has a special place, as I said, in the Quran, in the Hadiths, and in the hearts of the Muslims. There's no doubt about that. But the Muslims being violated by non-Muslims, Muslims fighting themselves, Muslims blowing each other up in the Middle East and other parts. It's extremely unfortunate. So my advice would be to make sure that you have the necessary sympathy or empathy. That's very important. Okay, don't say, oh, well, that's their problem. It's not my problem. It's been going on. Don't say things like that. Make dua for them. If you can do something physically, do something physically. If you can do something financially, you do something financially. And what's important is never allow the truth to be confused with falsehood. No matter what's going on, no matter how long it's been going on, this is right and this is wrong, period. There is no compromising of truth with falsehood. Because it's been going on for such a long time, it's not okay. La. Because it's been happening for such a long time, it's no longer a problem. No, it still is a problem. All right? And last but not least is that Allah Azza wa Jal, He will allow oppressive people, He'll give them time. He'll let them off the hook for some time. He'll grant them respite for some time. But when He seizes them and when He takes them, Allah is swift in His reckoning. So we hope and we look forward to seeing that in this world. And if that's not Allah's will and if it's not Allah's decree, then we know that would definitely be from the top of the list on the things of spectacle and phenomena that would take place on the Day of Judgment is retribution and revenge. Those who killed, murdered, slaughtered, raped, pillaged, those who oppressed Allah's slaves. We know this is from the first things, as the Prophet ﷺ says, إِنَّ أَوَّلَ مَا يُقْضَى بَيْنَ الْعِبَادِ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ فِي الدِّمَاءِ. From the first things that will be discussed with regards to judgment day is blood. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells in the Quran, وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ اللَّهَ. Don't think that Allah is heedless from that which the wrongdoers do. Don't think that it escapes Allah and Allah is unaware. Don't think that. Allah grants them respite for a reason. So this is in brief, of course. We can go on and on and on about the conflict, about the fighting, about the different problems within the Muslims, outside of the Muslims. What's the solution to that? Does a Muslim believe in this state? Do they have a right to exist? So on and so forth. The hypocrisy of the media. And just, you have to respect certain things. What a person, what they have built are just an invincible force field. You can't say anything about us. You can't do anything to us. You can't criticize us. If you say anything about us, our statement, it automatically means you're this and you're that, and you'll be sanctioned. That's phenomenal. And one of the saddest things is the audacity of certain people because of the behavior of the Muslims. So if let's say a non-Muslim came into this masjid, right, and he started abusing you and violating you, and all of these people in this masjid were afraid of him, or they were in his pocket, or he could blackmail them, or whatever the case may be. For him to walk and see all of these Muslims say they're not going to do anything. He's not going to move. He's not going to flinch. I can just beat you up, kick you, spit on you, do whatever. I can hit you upside the head with a baseball bat. And I know all of these Muslims that are surrounding me and you aren't going to do or say what? Nothing. That's amazing. And that is the reality of what's going on. Your brothers aren't going to do nothing. Not going to help you out. La ilaha illallah. Of course, it's a long discussion historically, politically, all right? The different wars that were fought, different lands that were traded, sold, people who migrated, people who left, mistakes made, errors, all right? This is a long discussion. May Allah help us all. May Allah help the Muslims there. And may Allah Azza wa Jalla support the truth and support the people of the truth. And may humiliate the people of falsehood and the falsehood in this world and in the hereafter. That's what I would say. Wallahu alam. Fadal.
I got a text from one of the sisters, and they said that they were completely left out in the gift giving.
Tayyib. Allahu Akbar. Tayyib.
Wanted to make mention of that.
Khair. Tayyib. Well, we definitely apologize for that. I won't make any excuses. The sister or sisters that were in the class from the beginning, inshallah ta'ala, I myself, not another person, will try to make sure that your efforts and being consistent are rewarded in the coming class. Bi'idnillahi ta'ala, inshallah. Sheikh Abdul Basit.
Okay, in certain countries outside of the Middle East, peaceful protests are allowed. Certain Muslim countries, they're not allowed. So if you reside in a country where peaceful protests are allowed, situations like this,
Number one, is there any problem from Quran and Sunnah with having a peaceful protest? And number two, sometimes they have a large rally with people, say for example, people who are affiliated with Black Lives Matter might be there protesting against the situation, or the LGBT, they're also in the mix. So if Muslims are trying to stand for justice with in a protest like that, how does that work?
Understood. With regards to protesting peacefully in a country in which it is not prohibited, it's not illegal to do. You're not in the Middle East, and there are other protesters and ralliers who may have different agendas and madhabs as well. Can you support that? So on and so forth. I spoke on this maybe a year ago, over a year ago, before the pandemic, when the George Floyd stuff was going on, okay, and the BLM movement and stuff was really bad. They were shooting people, the modern day lynching, right, etc. And FYI, you being a lover of history, and the brothers and sisters who are watching and listening, I would advise you guys to read the history of lynching in the United States. All right, it's not so simple and easy. You read the history of lynching, and you'll find many scary parallels to what's been happening in the 21st century. All right, same concept. All right, paranoia, fear, and the list goes on. And marginalizing one people, one race to take the majority of the lynchings. All right, that's a long discussion. So I spoke on this, and I mentioned that to understand this situation correctly, you have to look at the whole entire political system of the Middle East and of Western countries or Western influenced countries as well. Why is protesting prohibited? And why is it such a cardinal sin in the Middle East? And of course, that's going to have a major impact on the fatwa. Are protests impermissible because of they clearly go against Quran and Sunnah? It's a violation of the deen. We have jealousy and fervor for the religion, or is it deeper than that? What is the political atmosphere in those lands? Hear no evil, say no evil, do no evil, versus the political atmosphere of this country, in which criticism, open speech, protesting, rallying is not only allowed, but it's also encouraged. All right? So to take those two different atmospheres and to say that they're the same, you already lost. And this is the mindset of many people here, whether this city, this country, UK, and overseas as well. You cannot mix the two. They're night and day. All right? That's number one. Number two is for people to deny, shamelessly, people deny the effect and the power of protesting and rallying is also, in my humble opinion, a capital mistake. And many people who have spoken on the issue, you can't protest. Protesting does nothing. It changes nothing. You're just being obstinate and arrogant to history. And it is not about civil rights. Forget civil rights, black, white, Jim Crow. Forget that. Look at the Vietnam War. One of the reasons why the Vietnam War was finished and ceased was because of what? Protesting. And the Vietnamese, those who were fighting against, obviously, different types of Vietnamese, North, Viet Cong, Viet Minh, etc., fought the South and their allies. They would fight many battles in which militarily was a disaster. It was slaughter. Casualties were horrific, but it was a major political victory. We didn't win on the battlefield. Our casualties were 10 times more than the Americans. But the media coverage, the students on the campus, the people seeing the horror and the slaughter, that was a landslide victory. And obviously we all know war. So to deny the power of protest and rallying, to deny the power of the average person putting pressure on the politician is just pure arrogance. And many people, they've fallen into that. All right? You can't change anything by protesting. You only get shot. You only get beat up. It is only as much of hollering and screaming and rah-rah. This is what people say in fatwas. I don't know how anyone living in this country who knows anything about the history of this country can accept that. All right? So therefore, there has to be a difference between America and Saudi Arabia or Qatar or Kuwait or any other country there. There has to be a difference. Number two, what are the people doing when they're protesting? Are they rebelling against a Muslim ruler? Is there a Muslim ruler even in America? The stupidity of certain statements. What Muslim ruler is there, ya akhi? This is the land of kufr. What are you talking about? There's no hakam shar'i. There's no sharia. So who am I revolting and rebelling against? That's once again, that's comparing two things which are totally what? Different. All right? Also, the concept of I'm not destroying anybody's property. I'm not burning any tires. I'm not breaking any police cars. But I'm voicing that I am displeased. I'm upset. I'm disgruntled. I'm irate. I'm not pleased at what's going on here, there, so on and so forth. And me as a citizen, as a taxpayer, as a person who works, as a person who's a part of society, I demand that you hear my voice. I demand that you hear what I have to say. If you can prove that that's impermissible from Quran and Sunnah in that light, then tafaddal. And if you can't, then you can't. Everyone understand this? Last but not least, some people, they say, I've heard this, some people have said, well, even those who have peaceful protests and those who have peaceful demonstrations, it will lead to violence. It will lead to chaos. It will lead to this and that. Maybe. And oftentimes that is the case. But just because you're doing something wrong, it doesn't mean that you can now hinder me from doing something which isn't wrong. The Sharia doesn't work like that. Because there are Muslims who are doing things incorrectly and they're calling it fighting in the cause of Allah, that does not abolish the correct fighting in the cause of Allah. And there are many victims of this mindset. Be careful. Many people have become victims of this mindset. Because they're doing something wrong, now there's none of it anywhere. It's all the same. That's an error. What you're doing wrong ain't got nothing to do with me. And the same applies to teaching knowledge and studying overseas. This brother here, he's saying this, he's talking this crazy stuff. He went to this school, that ain't got what? Anything to do with me. We went to the same school. What I'm teaching is different than what? What he's teaching. What I'm calling to is not what he's calling to. Even though we may look the same and we may say things that are the same, but what he's doing has nothing to do with my actions. So all of these things must be taken into consideration with regards to protests, with regards to demonstrations, and with regards to rallying. The Muslims in the United States, there lies no doubt, are in abundance. Huge number of Muslims. So for us to think and feel that we're going to live in a country, you can't vote, can't pay taxes, can't go to school, can't protest, can't do this, can't do that, can't do that, and we're just going to live and grow and keep multiplying, having more and more children. It's ludicrous. For us to have no involvement in what's going on around us is what? Is ludicrous. And for us to sit back on the boat and to allow the foolish people to scuttle the ship just to get a drink of water, not to disturb those on the top deck. We all know what the Prophet ﷺ tells us about that. Those who ride on the ship. The people on the bottom said, we don't want to bother those on top, etc. And then they're going to cause the whole entire ship to drown. So you can't just sit back and allow foolish people to do something, to do things, and say nothing, do nothing, and then later on we get mad and upset. They shut this down. Muslims can't do this. We now have to register this. We now have to get this vaccine. Why didn't you speak up when you had a chance to do what? Speak up. If you're unwilling to light a candle, you cannot curse the darkness. You're unwilling to light your own candle, you can't say, oh man, why is it so dark? So these are things that have to be taken into consideration with regards to giving an accurate fatwa on protesting and demonstrations in light of what was mentioned. In America, peaceful, not doing this, not destroying that, not killing this, not chaotic, etc. That's what I would say. And of course, if that's done properly in that light, with those needs, I don't know of anything that would prohibit it. Wallahu alam. Allah surely knows best. That's in brief. Fadal.
Just piggyback off the question my brother asked about making a maghrib when you come in, if the congregation is making Isha. Is it different if you're making Tawari, you come in, congregation is making Tawari, but you got to make Isha? Is it different because
Same thing. Yeah, you're going to enter into the Taraweeh, even though your intention is Fard, Isha. You're making 4 rakaat, they're going to salam out after 2. You come into the masjid, join the congregation. Don't stand back, don't pray somewhere separately. Join the jama'ah, get the barakah of the jama'ah with your own specific niyyah. If they salam out for 2, you stand up, etc. Same thing. Fadal.
Last week or the week before, all these years I didn't know that you can brush your teeth while you was fasting.
Okay.
I want to ask another question in regards to the fast. The time that you start fasting, is it exactly that moment that Fajr comes in, or is it?
Clear. With regards to brushing your teeth or doing anything else, food in your mouth, swishing around a drink or whatever, do you go by the exact minutes or not? It's basically like a yes and a no answer. The yes part is that our lives to a large extent are digitized. To a large extent. Pinpoint accuracy of direction, pinpoint accuracy of days, 12 a.m., 11:59 p.m. is technically considered a what? A new day. So let's say, for example, you have a payment that you're making, right? And you already made that payment to this card or whatever the case may be. Now you want to buy something else. You want to pay something else. They'll tell you you can't do what? 2 transactions in what? In one day. It's 11:59. Come 12 a.m. on your app, what can you do? Right or wrong? So for the yes part is, the prayer schedule says 4:11, 4:11 on the dot. And from another aspect, the no part is that prayer times can oftentimes be give or take, especially Fajr. Especially Fajr. And some scholars have mentioned is that Fajr is normally, the schedule is going to be 10 minutes before or after. Give or take. So proper intention is no issue with regards to abuse. It's the app says 4:11. I'm finishing my tea, just a little small little piece, of bread in my mouth. I swallow it. It's 4:12. That's one thing. Versus I'm just keep eating and drinking systematically until 4:21 because it could be 10 minutes. No. You get what I'm saying to you? So there's a huge difference between something in your mouth, spitting out, food, couple minutes, give or take. You got what I'm trying to say? And Allah knows best. We'll take a question from the line. First question says, initials KS from London, UK. Says, Assalamu alaikum, Sensei, would you or what should we as Muslims, as a part of the Ummah of Muhammad do to help protect and defend Muslims in Palestine? Should we give our lives? And what is Fard Ayn, Kifaya, Jazakallah? Similar to the previous questions, wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Our world is our world. And there are many times in which a person is willing to do what they have to do for Palestine or other than Palestine. And it's very important for us to pay attention that it's not just Palestine. Palestine is special. Jerusalem is special. No doubt about that. We established that. But suffering of human beings, let alone Muslims, isn't specific to that part of the earth. And oftentimes many people, they have a double standard when it comes to this. And I'm not talking about nobody specifically or attacking nobody specifically, but racism is a part of it. And tribalism is a part of it. These Muslims having this major humanitarian crisis, no qunut, no special prayers, no fundraiser. These Muslims, they go through a humanitarian crisis, qunut, raise money, send money. And then of course, the Muslims of that race or of that nation, it's not their fault that they're being organized. You can't blame me because I'm trying to make sure they're all right. But we're talking about the mindset that you have to listen. You have to donate. You have to be a part of it. You have to feel bad because of this race or because of this country. But Muslims in China, Muslims this country in Africa, Muslims here, suffering. The jackboot is on their neck. And it's what? Class is of no importance. Oh, make dua, brother. But of this country, that's a problem. And this is one of the things that has led to the disasters in Palestine and in other countries. Racism and tribalism. And if you don't believe me, then read your history. Read your history. Read about the different wars and revolts that took place because of race. These are non-Arabs that are our leaders. We don't want that. We want to have Arab leadership. And of course, the non-Muslims, they sold them that lie. You help us fight them, and we'll give you your own freedom. You'll be in charge of your country. And we know since that happened, it has been a downward slide to this day. All right? So Muslims' blood is sacred. Muslims who's yellow, Muslims who's white, Muslims who are red, brown, green, purple, period. And we should feel bad for all Muslims suffering, for all humans suffering. We want good for the people. All right? So the bottom line is that our world has become so, the word I'm looking for is so overburdening, is that a person may want to do something physically and he can't. You may want to do something financially and you can't. So do what you have the ability to do. Even if something is fard ayn, you may not have the ability to do it because of the nature of the world. It's your obligation to go out and fight in this country, but you may not have the ability to get there. All right? So if you have the ability to get there, then that's what you do. And if you don't have the ability, then you try your best. That's the best thing that I would say. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best. Next question says, Jazakallah khairan, barakallah feek. Questions from London again. Initials AM. Is it permissible for a sister to have a dress that she only wears for salah in her home? There's nothing wrong with that, inshallah. That's your house dress, your clothing. Don't believe that there's any special virtue to that piece of clothing. Initials RI from Melbourne, Australia. Is it permissible to sell a dog? Selling a dog is impermissible. It's haram. Some scholars have allowed the selling of a lawful dog, such as a hunting dog or sheep dog or a security dog. And many other scholars say that the selling of a dog is totally prohibited, period. Selling it, buying it is haram, even if it's for lawful use. And some scholars say that you are allowed to buy or sell a dog that is for what? Legal uses. Legal uses. Hunting or other than hunting. It's not specific, etc. And Allah knows best. Initials IB from London, UK. What is the ruling on jihad when people have incorrect aqidah? What's important is al-jihad fi sabilillah is a part of our religion, and it has rulings and it has regulations. The rulings and those regulations are to be taken from Quran and Hadith. The rulings and the regulations that are foreign and alien to Quran and Hadith are rejected, no matter who says them. And oftentimes people put stipulations on things that make things to be impossible. This stipulation, this condition, this prerequisite, it has to be like this, it has to be like that, it has to. And at the end of the day, with all of those prerequisites and stipulations, you have erased jihad from the religion of Islam. That's a major, major problem. If I say that there's so many conditions for it to be a masjid, masjid has to be from the ground up. Masjid, the imam has to be a hafiz Quran. He has to know this. He has to have this ijazah. He has to be keda. The masjid has to be ran by this. The masjid cannot have this. The masjid cannot have such. The masjid. I put up 1,000 prerequisites. At the end of the day, it's not going to be no what? The masjid has been abolished. We have to be very careful. That's extremely dangerous. And that directly applies to jihad fi sabilillah. And there's some people who say, if these people have a false aqidah, or if this person has this mistake or this issue, there's no fighting, and there's so on and so forth. Is that correct? This is a serious question that I'm asking. Is that correct? Is that valid scholastically? Is the general in charge of talking to every single member of the army and asking them this question? What do you believe about this? What do you know about this? Is that realistic? Did the Prophet ﷺ do that? Did he go and talk to every single combatant and ask them? How to use common sense. And Allah knows best. And of course, what I'll say without trying to get into any further trouble, because I already got into trouble enough on this live stream, is that Allah Azza wa Jal clearly mentions in the Quran, وَلَوْ كَرِهَ الْكَافِرُونَ وَلَوْ كَرِهَ الْمُجْرِمُونَ وَلَوْ كَرِهَ الْمُشْرِكُونَ. Even if they hate it, even if it bothers them, even if they don't like it. So do you think that the people who have diseases in their hearts, may Allah help us all, do you think they're just going to sit back and allow and go ahead? Of course they're not. And they're going to use everything in their power, physical, financial, whatever type of power, to prevent that and to stop that. And from that, they're going to create scholarship. They're going to create scholarship that suits their agenda and furthers their aims. And this is a fact. This is a historical fact. So be careful. And this does not mean we're going on this extreme or that extreme. This country is this. These people are. We're not with falsehood. Whoever brings it, we're not with batil, right? Historic batil, Islamic, whatever. We're not with batil. But facts are what? Are facts, and Allah knows best. The question comes from Ontario, Canada. Initials AW. Is it permissible to pay for a service which enables student discounts on items? Paying for a service that enables student discounts on items. I don't understand the exact.
20% off of your student.
Tell you. So you pay for the service and they give you a specific discount. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Initials AA from Mississauga, Ontario. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. How would you advise the layman Muslim to support? I mentioned that already. EA from Valenciennes, France. Sometimes we learn something from the Sharia which is against our desires, or that we don't get the wisdom behind it. What are the means for accept it and be pleased with it? Many du'as with regards to that. Many du'as for that, for Allah to allow your heart to have the yaqeen and the tranquility. Initials CW from Oakland, California. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh Mufti. Is there any allowance to the female discharge before she has to make wudu? We've spoken on this before. And we've mentioned different books that are available in the English language and other than the English language on this topic. What's important is the scholars on this issue, among other issues, they differ. And inshallah ta'ala, the simple answer is that the wudu is valid. It doesn't break the wudu, nor is it considered to be najis. And Allah knows best. Tayyib. Initials KK from Atlanta, Georgia. Assalamu alaikum, Mufti. What is the significance of the sword you brandish? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I don't brandish any swords. I may carry a sword. I may have it with me. You may find it in the thumbnail. But I don't think I've been brandishing a sword. What's the significance of a sword? Why do you carry a sword, etc.? There's several reasons. One of those reasons is that the sword, historically, and even to this day, signifies and symbolizes many things. From that which the sword signifies and symbolizes is precision, accuracy, seriousness, sharpness, elegance, beauty, craftsmanship, professionalism, and that it's not a game, it's not time to laugh and joke, but the khutbah is serious. And of course, however beautiful a sword may be, and however or whatever type of piece of art it may be, the sword is a weapon. There's no doubt about that. It's a device for killing. And in this khutbah, we are here to kill ignorance. We're here to abolish ignorance. We're here to cut off the ugly head of ignorance and disobedience and misconceptions about Allah and His Messenger. So that's what that sword signifies and represents. That we're serious, it's not a joke, and inshallah ta'ala, what we're trying to say and what we're trying to present, inshallah, is sharp, it's accurate, it's solid, and at the same time, it's beautiful and it's elegant, and that it's not a joke. So these are some of the reasons, not all, some of the reasons why I personally choose to carry a sword when I do the khutbah on the minbar. There are other reasons, Islamic and non-Islamic as well. Wallahu alam. Tayyib. I think it's time to stop for the adhan, inshallah ta'ala. We'll stop here, or not yet?
Could you brandish the book one more time that you start next week?
Oh, next week, inshallah, what did we say? Riyadh Salihin? Khalas. No white meat shake. Riyadh Salihin, right, Jabbar? Bidnillah. Inshallah, we got a first aid kit here in the masjid.
Any chapter?
From the beginning. Yeah, min al-bidayah, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Fadal, Sheikh. Fadal.
I have to ask you this question.
Bismillah.
It's been bothering me for a long, well, not bothering me, but I'm not clear on it. Right? If I come in and I join the Jama'ah, right, and they're in the second rakaat, they're in the second rakaat. When they go down and they're in Joseph, they're in the second city.
Okay.
Where they do the attachment.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's not the second city.
Clear.
So
Understood.
should I do the attachment?
No. If you're in your first rak'ah, but they're in their second or third, etc., you're not going to make the tashahhud with them. You're going to sit down and you're going to say subhanallah, make tasbih. Don't sit silently. There should be no place in the prayer that is void of dhikr. Right? You're sitting there for some time, you shouldn't be silent. So say subhanallah and that's it. Don't move your finger. Don't make the tashahhud, the tahiyyat, none of those things, because that is not your specific prayer. So you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. You're following the imam, which you have to do. But at the same time, you have your own intention of your own specific prayer, which you have to do. And in this instance, that takes precedence. So you're going to sit with the imam, but you're not going to say what the imam and the rest of the believers are saying. This is very important, because many people they have a misunderstanding with regards to this. And Allah knows best. Fadl.
Sister said she's seeking marriage and has a Muslim uncle, her father's brother, who has acted as a wali and wakil. Is it permissible for the woman to seek a wakil other than her uncle, or does he have to?
With regards to the wali or the wakil by blood, is it lawful for me to seek another one? Inshallah ta'ala, if there's a reason, then it's permissible. If there's a reason, a valid reason, such as the wali is preventing her, he's unnecessarily preventing her from a suitor, from a suitable zawj, a suitable brother. The scholars of Islam mention is that there are things which when the wali does them, if and when he does them, he loses his waliship. You're no longer deserving of it. If you're failing to do the job, if you're preventing a good, suitable situation, you can lose your right to being the wali of the woman, even though a person would normally be the wali, through blood or through other than blood. So if there's a reason, if there's a need, there's nothing wrong with that, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. And Allah surely knows best. We'll stop here. It's time for Salat al-Isha. Sallallahu sallam wa barak ala abdihi wa rasulihi nabiyina wa imamina Muhammad. Jazakumullahu khairan. Fikum barakallah.